Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. I am Michael Ritt, a patient educator with the Stephen and Barbara Slaggie Family Cancer Education Center at Mayo Clinic. I'll be your moderator today for today's session. Today's webinar is about the Peregrine Falcon Program with Jackie Fallon. This session is going to be recorded. If you prefer not to be recorded, please feel free to leave the live session. Once available, the video recording will be posted in the video library on our cancer education blog on Mayo Clinic Connect. In a moment, I'll be sharing the Mayo Clinic Connect link in the chat, so you have that readily available to you. Mayo Clinic Connect is an online community where people can share experiences, find support, and exchange information with others. We encourage you to follow our cancer education blog on Mayo Clinic Connect to learn more about our other offerings and to access additional education, support, and cancer-related resources. For this session, we're going to take questions during the presentation. Please use the Q&A section of your Zoom application to drop your questions in there, and I'll be sure to bring those to Jackie so she can answer them as she's presenting. At this time, I'm honored to introduce our speaker for today, Jackie Fallon. She's with the Peregrine Falcon Program.
Great. Thank you, Michael. For those of you in the room, good afternoon. My name is Jackie. I'm the naturalist and biologist with the Peregrine Falcon Program here at Mayo. We are celebrating our 39th year of having peregrines on campus. So we are already, from the Heritage team, already planning our 40th bash. And it's going to be over at the Civic Center and open to the public and food and light beverages. With me today is Echo. He is truly the star of the show. Echo is a captive bird. He is 10 years old. I acquired him from a falconer. And falconry is basically using a trained raptor to hunt. So before we had guns, this is how we caught our food. And it is still a practice used today, 5,000 years later. Unfortunately, the falconer that hand-raised Echo is really ill, and both he and his partner, and they had to rehome all of their birds. So I acquired Echo 3 years ago. We are definitely not the best of friends. Being a hard imprint, he likes the person who hand-raised him. I don't look anything like the person who hand-raised him. I don't have the gray hair, the gray beard. I am in that 60-year range, but I am not his cup of tea. So he tolerates my existence, and that is why he is on a tall perch, because when he's on the glove, he screams. He's a 2-year-old throwing a temper tantrum 24/7 and trying to bully and manipulate. But he is drop dead gorgeous. So for those of you new about the Peregrine program, you might ask, why did Mayo get involved? It seems like a very strange relationship. But if you've studied or know anything about Dr. Will and Charlie and the sisters, you know nature is obviously a really important thing to them. So Will on his riverboat probably saw peregrine falcons along the Mississippi River. Charlie and his farm, definitely he had his own menagerie of critters and was a big time birder. And to me, it's just the value of nature. Getting outside makes you feel good. And I'm not talking running a marathon, but just sit outside, listen to the birds, look at a stream, whatever it might be. I know my stress level decreases. I get in a good place in my life. And not enough people spend enough time outside. And we get told constantly by patients and staff how much they enjoy watching the camera. And so especially during COVID, for many of you, like the OB unit, I got, when those first chicks hatched in 2020, it was one of the only good things to happen in 2020. They weren't able to go home. They had to stay here. People, we didn't understand that virus. So that is why we do this program. And I see it every time I'm on campus. I get it from emails. I get it through our Facebook page. Hugs, tears, whatever it might be. It makes me feel that I'm doing a little bit of good like you all are doing to helping out the patients here at Mayo. So Mayo got its start back in '87 when we released 32 young peregrines off the rooftop of the Mayo building. And we had to rely on captive bred birds because we had wiped out every peregrine east of the Rockies with DDT. So it was falconers who had a few peregrines that they were hunting with, figured out how to breed the birds in captivity, because the thing with peregrines is the females are twice as big as the males. If she doesn't like him, what's going to happen? They're bird hunting birds. She is just going to kill him. So they had to figure out artificial breeding techniques. And the things that the Peregrine Fund discovered about breeding peregrines is why we have over 500 California condors alive today from just 22 birds left on Earth. So it's been a great success story. The Peregrine Recovery Program is the most successful endangered species worldwide. We wiped out 90% of them with DDT, and now we have a population of close to 500,000, where we didn't even have 100,000 back in the 20s and 30s. So we released 32 young birds. It took us a while to get a breeding program started, but in 1992, we had our first chick hatch out of a nest box on the Plummer building. No better place to have a nest box, in my opinion. The birds like the tall buildings, and we also have a lot of birds floating around downtown, especially pigeons. So it was an easy yes from the Board of Trustees back in '86 when the Midwest Peregrine Society had asked about having access to a rooftop, hiring a bunch of grad students to let these 30-some babies go, and they jumped on board. Mayo is the first medical center to get involved with an endangered species, and now Cleveland Clinic, Johns Hopkins, Stanford, Berkeley, all have peregrines nesting on their building. There's actually a chick from Mayo that is nesting on a medical center down in St. Louis, Missouri. She is 18 years old and still alive and kicking it.
Wow.
She had a chick last year. I'm hoping she has maybe one more in her, but 18 is really, really old for a wild peregrine. What Echo's doing, he's obviously not stressed. He's just preening in all those new feathers. So because he's hand raised, he doesn't have a lot of fear. He's great for bringing into a clinic situation as long as he's on the tall perch and not sitting on my glove. He has his moments for sure. But 5 years ago, the Heritage Program, I was going through a career change. I needed to change. The Heritage Program had some funding and saw the benefit to this program, really wanted to expand it. So now I'm able to provide free programming within the Mayo enterprise at all 3 campuses. I go down to Florida and Jacksonville in the winter. Good gig for me, although we have to drive. It's a 2-day drive down there. But it's the hopes, and one of the ideas is to get both Arizona and Jacksonville involved with their own endangered species program down there with something that their staff and patients can get behind. Meet about 40,000 people every year for the program. So I have 2 peregrines. Echo here is a little male. He is half the size of a female peregrine. Rye is the bird that we met. She is better for inpatient room visits. She tolerates all the machinery, the lights, the chaos there, where Echo is more tolerant of all the other chaos that exists here at the clinic. But yeah, that's kind of the spiel. Not sure if you guys have questions or anything you want to know. Right now, I'm on campus every Tuesday from 9 to 11 at the display area, February through June. And our breeding pair of birds, Hattie and Norton, this is their 10th year together. They both came out of Minneapolis. I banded both of them, and I've been lucky enough to band some of their chicks that have gone on to nest other places. So they're currently incubating 4 eggs. You can find it on the website, or it's in the inpatient TV circuit. But those 4 eggs should hatch next weekend. And if they hatch, we will be banding them right around Memorial Day weekend, either Friday or Tuesday, depending on exactly when nature decides it's ready to hatch. But there's a lot of what ifs, just like anything, there's no guarantees. But Hattie and Norton are experienced parents. They know what to do. They just have to be left alone enough to do it. And the construction and renovation is not having any impact on them whatsoever. It's all going down at low levels. Even a 10-story building is nothing compared to the top of the Mayo building. So I'm working very closely with facilities and the expansion team to make sure that the birds stay safe, but also people stay safe. Because peregrines, when they're defending their territory, they're striking their prey in the head, going about 100 miles an hour. I've been hit in the head, knocked out cold, and given a concussion. And I am not a delicate flower. So that is how much power they have. And that included while I was wearing a hard hat. So you can see why I'm working so close with window washing people. And if a lab cooling unit goes out, how can we keep them safe when they're on top of a rooftop? Because that cooling unit obviously has to get fixed now. And we don't want people struck. Or you're changing the flag on top of the plumber building. All of that I've kind of taken responsibility for as a consultant. Any questions?
Jackie, you mentioned the babies, the chicks.
Yes.
Is that what they're called?
Chicks?
Chicks?
Yep.
I know we have a live feed. Is that internal or external?
That's
Anybody
both.
could, okay.
So if you go to the Heritage Day program website, history.mayoclinic.edu, I think. I just go there. So it's a long link. That's all I know. You can find the Falcon program under that. Maybe history. If you type in just Mayo Clinic Peregrine Falcon Program, it should also come up.
Online, I'm going to get you the link to the live stream.
And it is a live stream
Yep.
off of that. So that is on 24/7. It's got great audio. It's got nice nighttime vision for the adults while they're hatching, while they're doing chick things. So the Falcon Cam, and whoops, up above a little bit right there, Falcon Cam Mayo Clinic History and Heritage website.
There we go.
So it's right below that, right there. So right now, you can tell when there's
Definitely
a lot of
has
construction going on or it's really windy. But the nest box is on the top of the Mayo building facing the plumber building. And the female does most of the incubation. So she is on there at least 75% of the time, while the male does all of the hunting for those chicks and for himself until the chicks are about a week and a half, 2 weeks old. So the female being bigger, she's more defensive about the territory. She protects the space. The males do all the hunting. They work great together as a team. But the female really doesn't like males feeding chicks. I attribute it to men don't know how to do anything, so it's better off if I just do it myself, kind of thing. But Orton really wants to feed chicks. And so he will try and sneak in there, but he's always looking over his shoulder. Like, God, is she coming back? And when she comes back, she has run him around that circle in the box. Like, get out of here and get out of here now. How many times do I have to tell you? But he just wants to feed chicks so badly. But it's not his job, or he can't do it right. Good afternoon. Doing good. How are you doing? As good as can be. Well, now you got a falcon to look at. So, oh, you did. Yeah, you get to touch Otis. You don't get to touch Echo. He's not very touchable.
Jackie, you mentioned 100 miles per hour. Is that as fast as a
No,
peregrine falcon can go? Or?
they slow down from 240 miles an hour down to 100 miles an hour. So when they're in that dive and that stoop, that's one of the ways that they catch their prey. If they're catching something big, they're going to strike and use their back toes to hit their prey in the head. If they're going to hunt something smaller, like a blue jay or a small songbird, they're just going to fly, stoop, and then grab it with their feet. But their beak is their formidable weapon. They do have the talons, but their closest living relatives are parrots. One reason why he's so loud and obnoxious, just like a parrot, but that bite, that vice grip, it feels like getting your finger slammed in a car door. So they'll hunt in a couple of different ways depending on what they are hunting. So that's one of the unique things about peregrines or falcons and raptors. They also have a larger heart. They pump more oxygen through their bodies because they're diving at such speeds, and all their hunting is done up in the air. So they're not hunting the rabbits and squirrels, snakes, lizards, bugs on the ground. They're catching their food 100 feet or more up in the air. So in falconry, that's why a lot of people use dogs to get the game off the ground, because the pheasants and ducks know they're safe if they sit on the pond. But they got to worry about that dog running in there to bust them off the pond. But that doesn't mean, even though they're so fast, doesn't mean they don't have some natural predators like great horned owls or other peregrines. So peregrines are really territorial. Orton here got injured a few years back, 2020, 2021. It was mask time. He was chasing off another intruder, and they got into it. And he collided with the building, ended up at the Raptor Center for a couple of weeks, but has since recovered and obviously doing just fine. But they are recovered. So losing birds to collisions with buildings, natural predation, avian influenza, West Nile virus, those kind of things really have no significant impact on the population. It's chemicals. And right now what we're studying is the forever chemicals, like what's in Scotchgard. That never disappears from the environment. So all those old couches and baby clothes and stuff that get dumped in a landfill that seep into the water table causes birds where they don't know how to take care of their eggs. They don't know how to incubate their eggs. They won't feed chicks. They won't breed, or the chicks develop 100%, but they don't hatch. So there's a researcher out of Canada that's studying it along with some mercury. And so we are submitting a bunch of unhatched eggs and looking at our population to try and see how big of an impact it's having on our upper Midwest population. But peregrines are doing great. We've got over 80 pair in the state. Just the one pair here in Rochester, because Rochester really only has tall buildings downtown. And because of their territorialness, they're not going to tolerate even another box over at St. Mary's. That is certainly within their hunting. Plus, you have the helicopters. They're not really fond of the helicopters coming and going off that rooftop. And it's a pretty busy airspace where it's pretty quiet downtown here. So if you want to find them, you can find them sitting on top of the Mayo, Gonda, Sebens. They like the circles on the west side of the Sebens building, and then the Plummer building. Sometimes the hotels off of Broadway, the Hilton and Broadway Plaza. You can find them sitting there when the chicks have fledged, but look places high, and that's where you're going to find them.
Just a reminder for my friends online, you're welcome to submit questions for Jackie and Echo through the Q&A in your Zoom session there. You had mentioned kind of the distance and kind of their territory. What kind of distance are we talking about from kind of where their home base is, which is, I'm assuming, where they have their eggs, right?
Yeah, their territory is based centered around their nesting structure, but it varies for each individual bird. So in downtown Minneapolis, we have 4 pair within 2 miles. Here in Rochester, we know Hattie and Norton have been seen up to Stewartville and up to 75th Street. So, and they're recovered. So putting up another nest box really isn't a benefit for a recovered species. But one of the things we want to do, I was able to get some funding. We have never looked at migration or home territory sizes in peregrines in the lower 48. So I finally gathered enough pennies through donors, and my goal is to put 2 transmitters, one on Hattie and one on Orton, next spring or during the winter, and then 2 transmitters on peregrine falcons up on the North Shore. So we'll know. It's going to change where they go depending on the season. Because again, March through July, the adults are sticking right downtown. In the wintertime, they could go anywhere. But it's going to tie into some active curriculum with teachers, because we've got a big interest in having teachers get some science to study and do that number crunching, geeky math stuff. He's just trying to figure stuff out. I don't think he recognizes that it's him on that screen. So trying to figure out, am I going to have to sit and complain about that thing on the screen? I do know he's never happy with the live camera feed. We've put up the live camera feed in other programs. It has been a disaster because he does view those birds as a threat.
Mm. From a hunting perspective, do any of you have questions? I don't want to keep asking all the questions. No. I'm just curious about their sight, their vision, like how they hone in on something so small when they're flying so high.
So there you get a little bit of a vocal. That's his just, I'm irritated. I don't like you. Get away from me. 2-year-old temper tantrum kind of thing. Their vision is their most important sense. They have eyes that are 2 to 3 times better than our eyesight, but nobody can give you a distance factor. So back when I worked at the Raptor Center, we would always tell people, if you put a bald eagle at one end of a football field and obituary at the other end, the bald eagle could read that. Raptor ophthalmologists say that's a bunch of BS. Nobody knows. But what they do know is their ability to detect motion is key. So if you're a bird hunting bird, hunting birds in flocks up to 100 or more, their vision is what our military missile system is designed after. So they can stay on target and focus in on one thing. Pigeons here on campus, starlings in a huge murmuration of 500 or 1,000 starlings. They have the best eyesight of any raptor, much better than hawks and eagles, but you only hear about hawks and eagle eyesight. So I'd love to share that with the Eagle Center people because they think eagles are better than everything. Eagles are definitely not my favorite, the peregrine is. But basically also their eyes are half the size of their skull. What you see is just a very small part of the eye. And it is that movement of things. So everything about them has been designed in our military, our Air Force and our Navy planes. Your stealth fighter, that's him. Your B-2, that's him. Your P-51 Mustang from World War II, that is him. Because their feathers are stiff. It's the most aerodynamic thing. They can pump more blood and oxygen through their bodies to deal with that air pressure. They have a bone in their nose that equalizes the air pressure when they're diving at that 240 miles an hour, so they don't black out, so their lungs don't explode. They have built-in sunglasses that stripe down below their eye. With him, it's more in adulthood a full black cap because of where he's found. And then they also have very long, narrow toes. Like if he jumps off the perch, I can just pick him up with my bare hand and put him back up there. He's not going to foot me. It's his beak I'm more worried about biting me. That is his deadly tool. And then his beak is special with that vice grip capability or guillotine to sever the spinal cord of their prey. So they've got very unique adaptations that are the best of the best if you are hunting birds. And peregrines have been known to hunt over 2,000 different species worldwide, from hummingbirds up to sandhill cranes. You get hit in the head by something going 100 miles an hour, it is going to hurt. And if your head is smaller than my fist, you are going to die. That is just the law of physics. But they also can be extremely delicate and gentle with chicks or each other as well, with those same weapons they have.
Such a beautiful creature.
They're amazing. I read about these guys back in the 70s when we had already wiped them out. And I read a book, My Side of the Mountain by Jean Craighead George. Being an outdoor geek, I never thought I would ever see one in the wild. Maybe a zoo, because our numbers were so bad. And now I have 2 living at home. And his ancestors are those last 100 pairs of peregrines left in North America. So he may be a handful. He definitely has attitude. But he is drop dead gorgeous, and I can forgive all the rest of his attitude and temper tantrums. Based on my sheer luck to have a job that I love so much and to work with Mayo Clinic that also sees the value in this program. So I got asked the other day when I'm going to retire, because I'm 61. I said, I honestly, as long as I can wheel myself around with a falcon on the fist, I plan on being in the subway level on Tuesday mornings, you know. But we do have backup to hopefully continue this project because of the impact it seems to have for both patients and staff.
Is this the breed that falconers would use?
This is. If you were a prince back in the Middle Ages, your status in society dictated the species of bird you were permitted to hunt with, because falconry was a very rich and elite status thing. So emperors hunted with golden eagles, kings hunted with gyrfalcons, which is the largest falcon, princes hunted with peregrines, ladies hunted with a merlin, which is a small falcon, and the common man hunted with a goshawk. If you were caught hunting with a bird above your class, your hand was cut off. So as a woman, having 2 peregrines and having gyrfalcons in the past, I would not have made it for very long. But there are about 10,000 falconers worldwide. Falconry is still kind of a new thing in North America. It's only a little over 100 years old. But it is such a highly prized thing, especially in the Middle East. Queen Elizabeth was a falconer. You know, Shakespeare was a falconer. It definitely has a lot of ties to a lot of Shakespearean writings, falconry terms, all of that kind of stuff. We have about 100 falconers here in Minnesota that practice. I fly a hawk because of where I live, but when I do retire, I will fly a little male peregrine, because to me, there's just nothing better. I can sit and watch them all day long. I'm that boring and geeky.
Are they easy to train?
They can be. They're a wild animal. So with him being an imprint, it's like you having a puppy. You need to expose that puppy to everything before it's 6 months old, or it's going to shut down the window of what is safe and not safe. With birds, that window is really short. You've got about 2 weeks. So the person who hand-raised Echo is going through a divorce, no women in the house, and enough other stress going on in his life. So women, really low on his list of tolerable creatures. It's one reason I don't fly him, because I would never get him back. He likes the boyfriend, but the boyfriend has gray hair and a beard. And that is annoying more than anything, considering I pay all his bills. And he likes the boyfriend better. But yeah, it's a heavily regulated sport. It's a blast. It's great exercise. But there's also a lot of loss and emotion, because birds get injured. Birds get killed by other birds. They decide not to come back. Being a human imprint, he is less likely to leave me or leave the falconer, especially the falconer who hand-raised him. So you can, from the time I captured my first red tail from the wild until I caught my first rabbit, was less than 3 weeks. So it's all my sponsor, because in falconry, you have to be sponsored by somebody for 2 years so you don't do something stupid and kill your bird. You never lie, cheat, or steal. I'm a one and done. We catch something, we're done. I don't need to catch 8 rabbits in a day because the bird is not going to, in his mindset, catch 8 rabbits in a day. He's going to catch enough to get through till tomorrow. Maybe have a little bit cached and left over. So it's just based on that. A lot of positive reinforcement, but through food. That is the only thing we have of any value to them. Again, it's not, they're still a wild animal. They're not domesticated. They're not a pet. You can have a red, I know people that have flown and hunted with red tails for 10, 15 years and then release that bird as a breeding age bird. And there's no goodbye. They're not imprinted because you're catching them in the fall where they have long since left the nest. They're not imprinted on, they were raised by other red-tailed hawks kind of a deal, and they revert right back. So a lot of falconers, myself, were acquiring a young bird that's probably going to die anyway. 7 out of 10 die their first year. But if I take a young bird and I build up its confidence, teach it how to hunt through practice and practice and practice, have it be a really good hunting bird, and then release that bird a couple of years later, it now has made it over that hump and can hopefully raise more red tails later. So that's what I do. I've never kept a bird longer than 4 years. But every falconer is different. And then with Echo here being an imprint, he does not know how to avoid wild peregrines, wild red tails, great horned owls, golden eagles, any of that, because he was never exposed to them in the wild. So he would certainly not survive. Of course he did. I'm done with you. Little privacy here. Yep. He is a showman.
Does he know his name?
He does not. The biggest thing is I whistle, I put the glove up, he steps up onto the glove. And then I whistle and he steps off the glove. That's the extent of our training for anything. Because names, they're not social. They're not a social species like parrots. Names or our way of communicating have no value to him whatsoever. So it's always something that surprises me because when I'm down at the subway, everybody is talking baby talk and look over here and he's just wah, wah, wah. It's the old Charlie Brown, wah, 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 kind of a deal. I whistle. And that's the whistle I use. But some people can't whistle. So they may say step up, or they point to a scale, or they point to the glove. Give them some kind of cue, visual or an auditory cue to do where you want them to go. Nope. Nope.
So when you were spritzing them with the water over there, is
That's-
that like a reward? Or?
It's not a reward so much, but he is molting. He's heavily molting right now, so he's growing in lots of new feathers. Those new feathers are very itchy. So to get him to preen those new feathers, I often spray him down because that triggers his body to start preening his feathers. Also, this is our second program of the day, and I have one more right after this up on Mayo 15. I hit 3 in a row since I'm on campus. It's going to be a long day, so it also helps to calm them down. But some birds like to be sprayed with water, others don't. So it's just figuring out your individual bird. It's like us. You know, some people want to go to the beach, some people are mountain people. Do any of you watch the camera? Good, yes. Very good. Good answer. Or I'm walking out the door.
And we were just doing a story with 3rd grade on their whole history for TBT and all of that stuff. So we've started, my husband's coming out as a patient now, I've been watching the camera. But
Good.
we've been logging on at school with the students.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and they are really.
So I've got a friend of mine that teaches in Spearfish. Yes, her dad lives in Whitewood.
Oh, that's a small.
Yes, it's a very small world. And he's a pilot for Delta and a Falconer and is a patient here now at Mayo. So he has helped with the banding several times because he obviously knows how to hold the chicks and the Falcon. He was involved back in the 80s when we first started the releases, and his daughter teaches high school science. So I went out to Spearfish because there is a Mayo in Rapid City. And as long as there's a Mayo Clinic somewhere, I can go to it and Mayo will pay me to go to it. So Whitewood Elementary. Oh, ask them about Vanessa Bridges. That is her name. She's short, brunette, a little pistol of a. It's getting harder and harder to travel that distance. And I did it last year because I was coming back from Idaho with him. But if you, I will forget because my memory is that bad. So what you would need to do is my email is on the website, peregrines@mayo.edu. Send me an email. And Vanessa wants me to come back as well. It's just a matter of trying to find that time when I'm not somewhere else. And I would love to. If I've got to get an import permit, go through all the paperwork to come to South Dakota, I might as well do it for a couple of days. And then I've got a free place to stay as well, living or staying with her dad. But yeah, I'm glad. And that's the other thing. I just got back from Wisconsin. I did 14 schools in Wisconsin over 2 weeks. They all have the camera up from elementary through high school and even college. So that's the value of this program. Again, getting kids to think outside of their computer, their cell phones, games, watch nature, the good, the bad, all of it. You know, kind of a deal, because I'm glad I grew up when I did. I really am, that I never was inside. And I look at where I am now because of that. Although now I do more office stuff, and it was really hard the first year to sit at a computer for a couple hours, like, oh no, this is not going to fly. I need lots of breaks. But we've got the program up. Like I said, I'm meeting with over 200 different groups every year, about 40,000 people. And a lot of those are school groups, libraries, nature centers, universities. I teach a couple of classes at universities on wildlife conservation biology now. So the Heritage Program has been very kind to let me delve and develop the program on my interests, which you don't always get with a boss, to follow your own passions. And I can appreciate Mayo to do that. But also the Heritage Program has learned more about peregrines in 5 years than they ever knew beforehand. So I've been doing environmental ed with wildlife for almost 40 years. So I've figured out what works, what is a colossal disaster, you know, what teachers want, what the kids are interested in, how to make it engaging. And so I'm glad you watch the camera, and I'm glad your students are interested. Chicks should hatch next weekend. Saturday, Sunday, I think Sunday, but it doesn't really matter as long as they hatch. And then we'll be doing the banding again in Geffen Auditorium, and that is open to patients and staff as well. If you're back Memorial Day weekend-ish, that's when, if things hatch when they're supposed to hatch. But I'm just a biologist. The birds are going to do what they need to do.
Given that they are very defensive of their.
Yes. So the first 4-5 years, Hattie and Norton, we could be on top of the Mayo building. We're all taking pictures with the beautiful Plummer building behind. And it's like, here, hold the chick, have your picture taken. Well, all of a sudden, about 5 years ago, she learned at another rooftop how to chase people. So that's the thing is with peregrines, you've got to stand your ground. They're just like that 2-year-old pushing the limits or a dog, begging for food. And she learned she could chase people off a rooftop. So she started doing it with us. And we don't leave. So she flies closer and closer. People have been struck with hard hats. So what we do is there are 7 people that go up with umbrellas to protect the 2 people that are retrieving chicks. Because we're 300 feet up in the air. I mean, there is a little railing that's about 3-4 foot up. It's completely safe. But I can't be worried at where incoming is coming from because I'm grabbing chicks out of a box. So we literally have 7 protectors here to protect 2 people. And I was looking back through old photos. I'm like, God, I remember those days where it was just 2 of us could go up on a roof and grab a baby and take a picture and, to document the process. And now we're up and off in like 2 minutes because we don't want her to get hurt. We use umbrellas because if they strike the umbrellas, it's soft and they're just going to shred the umbrella. And then I go and I buy another golf umbrella in the fall, and she has done that. But she is an exception. Again, the birds learn how to become that defensive and get what they want. So when I work with companies and building management teams, I'm like, nobody can go up on a roof unless it's necessary. Because I know she's not going to kill me. You are going to run. And that is what she wants. And then we're going to have a big problem. So like here, when we had antennas that had to go up right near the nest box. We went up with 5 people to protect the 2 people installing the new antennas for the radio system. They didn't come anywhere near us because I do think because vision is such an important thing, they can recognize individuals. I've never been chased away. Donovan has never been chased away. So they're like, well, this is no fun. And it's exhausting.
Yeah.
To dive and stoop and yell and scream and complain. So then they just went over and sat on the plumber building for the couple hours. But it was before eggs had been laid. That was the key point because there are laws regarding. So much to say. So there are laws protecting harassment or negatively impacting birds. And so you can, at construction sites, like when I've done bridge stuff, multi-billion-dollar project, you can't have birds nesting on that bridge. So you can harass and chase off the birds, make it a less likely place to live for a year. But as soon as an egg arrives, you can't do anything. And that can shut down that $800 million project for months, and they are fined tens of thousands of dollars per day for a delay. So I do a lot of work with Department of Transportation people on, just chase them off. They show up on a ledge, get them off there, just make their life a little bit more challenging. They'll go someplace else and nest. Then when you're done with your bridge work in a year or 2, they can come back.
Can anybody else feel the wind from the, holy smokes. It's
It's-
powerful. It's powerful.
Again, diving, the stiff feathers, the most aerodynamic thing on earth.
How high do they normally fly?
It really depends on what they're doing when they're flying. They can fly easily a mile above the ground during migration, but they're more of a lower altitude migrator, maybe 1,500 feet, 2,000 feet on a real brisk push. When they're hunting, I'd say less than 1,000 foot by the time they connect with their prey. But it really depends on where they are, what they're hunting, when did they find the food, how far off were they when they started the chase. It's very variable.
Are people able to request to see the bird? Like, sometimes some people request like dogs.
I do a lot of work with the hospice department and nurses. that have a patient. The first time I did it, it was a nurse who had a lifelong birder, and she had never seen a peregrine. And she was being put into hospice later that week. And so I said, I just need 2 hours notice to put on decent clothes, get out of my jeans and a t-shirt, and grab a bird and come on down. So I do a lot of that. And it is, I've been told, had some nursing staff say, well, we were told we couldn't call you. And I said, well, I don't know who told you that, but that's my job. So if you have a patient or staff or somebody, I can't make a weekly visit to a department because that's all I would be doing. But it's some of the most rewarding opportunities I get because I can tell, it's like looking at Otis. You know, it's very therapeutic. And that's why I surround myself with animals, because they're the best therapy. They're cheaper than a therapist. You know, there's the man himself. Although the birds don't want to be touched. That's their one thing. But again, I can sit and just look at him and I can feel myself calm down.
Same with the cat.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And the birds do amazing. I mean, I sat and watched Orton a couple of years back. We had 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts, and it hit him. He was sitting on the eggs, and that wind gust just grabbed him by the butt and spun him around 360 degrees while he had no control. It looked like a little top. And so I love the behavior component of watching the birds just do amazing things. And again, to have Mayo be a part of it, have me have such an opportunity, because I grew up in that era where girls were told, and I was told in 10th grade, girls can't do science. So give up your dreams of being a veterinarian because you're not a boy, kind of a thing. But my mother was one of 13 and the only one in her family ever to go to college, and she became a doctor. So she hauled me back in, and that science teacher did not know what hit him. So I give credit to my mom to show me that it could be done in an era where it wasn't common. And thankfully, a lot of that has changed little by little. But yes, if you have patients or somebody, you can reach me through Peregrine's email. Andy has my personal email. You can send both. Michael has it. I monitor both email sites, and I'm just coming off a big trip, so I'll be back on daily emails again now. Today was my last big day of 3 weeks. Yes, no problem.
Okay, with our environment, the Cancer Education Center, if a patient does want to see the Falcon, how does that work with our setup?
So I would need a little bit of prep time because my calendar is posted in my Outlook account. I never know where I'm going to be day to day. I generally don't do a lot of programming May and June because I'm in the field so much banding babies. But it is always, if I am available and I don't have to be somewhere at 2:00, I can make it happen. But I do live up in the cities. So it's not a quick 10 minutes. I would need to know if you had a patient and you knew a week or so in advance, I could plan it much better. And I'm more than happy to do it because I enjoy it, I think, as much as they do. And you guys, you guys see it. You know what makes a difference and what doesn't. And I do think the birds, Otis, all of them make a huge difference to the patients here and staff. I think staff are sometimes forgotten. You're just kind of your staff. Yeah. They need that little pick-me-up and that little warm, fuzzy feeling of happiness. And the dogs here are fantastic. I love it. And like I told him, I was slighted this morning because I saw him down in subway level and he did not even bother to come over. He hit the piano and turned around. But I won't take it personal, Dean.
Well, thank you, Jackie, so much
Thank
for
you.
being here today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for those of you that participated online. We hope the information was helpful for you. As a reminder, I did put a link to our Mayo Clinic Connect site, so feel free to check that out and look at different, all the offerings that we have and all the support that we have available to you. I also dropped the link to the live feed for the Peregrine Falcon, so be sure to check that out as well. When the webinar's ended, you'll be prompted to take a quick survey. We appreciate your willingness to fill out this survey, as your feedback is helpful to ensure we are offering educational opportunities that are of value to you. So thank you all for joining us online. Thank you for those of you that are here in person, and have a great rest of your day.